Yeah.
Just messing with you. Yeah, we had a great spring. I think, for us, you're looking obviously for development of young players to get a lot of reps, and that certainly wasn't any different for this spring here at Alabama. And I thought we did a good job getting those guys incorporated both through necessity and opportunity. I thought the guys, we pushed them, worked on some new things and some new parts of the offense, some wrinkles that we're trying to get in, which you do every spring. And I thought for us, the development of that and some of the parts of the system that we're working on, that were a huge part of that. And I thought the guys just right away, just their response and commitment is really what you think about when you come to Alabama. It's just you're in a town, in a place where this is all that matters, and you love it. And that was their commitment level. And I felt like that was something we were able to build off of every day, is just how the guys would show up and work and be excited about the next day of practice. So love that part of it. I will open it up from there.
Thanks, Coach. We'll start in the front right here today.
Yeah, somewhat obligatory question. Tell us about the progress you saw from the quarterbacks and where that battle stands.
No questions on the quarterbacks today. I'm messing with you. I'm messing with you. That would have been disappointing, huh? I was super happy with all three of them. I think that, from a competitive standpoint, that's the first thing you want to see is do all three guys have the competitive stamina to play the position? Because if you're not ready for that type of scrutiny and that type of just the competition level that you need to have, and the mindset that you need to have as a quarterback to play at any level, much less in the SEC here in Alabama, I think that those guys showed that competitive stamina every day. And as far as development, I thought all three of them have, different strengths and weaknesses that we're working on, trying to celebrate the strengths and really work on some of the weaknesses. And obviously you have a wide range there from a first-year player, Keelon, to a guy like Ty that's been around the block and kind of middle of the road as far as experience is Austin. So I thought from those parameters, how the guys got together and worked together on build their own game, I thought was really impressive. And for us, I thought that was the starting point. Is just how do you get each guy to grow in their each individual spots, and they did a good job with it.
Go to front left here, Chase.
You guys carried 3 quarterbacks in the spring scholarship-wise anyway. Traditionally, obviously, college coaches used to like to carry 4, but with the transfer portal making it hard to hang on to a 4th, is 3 quarterbacks kind of the new number to carry?
Well, I think that's probably fair. I would never say no, like we're never going to have a 4th scholarship quarterback. I think every year presents potentially differently as far as where you have guys staggered in their classes and things like that. So you never want to say you can't add a 4th guy, especially if it's a unique situation. But for us, I think, the timing and where those guys are at developmentally, you're in a pretty good spot.
Staying on the left side of the back row to Katie.
You talked about some young guys getting reps out of necessity and opportunity. Just what did you learn about the offensive line this spring with some of the injuries you've had and some young guys getting more reps?
Yeah. We have more versatility than I initially anticipated. And what I mean by that is Olas was a guy that got out there and played left tackle almost every day, but certainly had opportunity at left guard. And I think Olas can play left tackle. I think he can play right tackle. I think he can play left guard. So you see a guy like that is cleanly able to function from the outside to the inside, and you're really happy about the versatility you can get there. So he's one guy that stood out. I thought Cam and Gino were guys that really stood out as far as they could play left guard and right guard, and then Gino could play left, right, or center. So that part, you just look at those 3 players right there. From the interior standpoint, man, you feel really excited about where you're at and where you're going. So those are guys that showed up every single day.
Jump back over to the right side. Let's go to
Yep.
Mike.
What stood out about Rico Scott when you first got here, and what sort of progress have you seen him make this spring?
Good question. Rico, I think the first thing that stood out to me was a very serious kid about his game, and very intelligent. And a guy like that has the ability to play on the outside and then still function in the slot, have a role. You want more guys like that, honestly, that can line up in all 3 spots. And we've always had a few guys like that everywhere I've been that are able to, you can get into different spots. Is one of the things I've always thought that we did a good job with our offense as far as moving people around, so people can't just get, hey, this is where Ryan Williams is every single play. is where Rico's at. And so for Rico to be able to create that versatility and position flex, I thought was really big for him.
We got 2 questions on the front row on the left. Let's go to Tony first, and we'll go to Colin right after that. Tony, go ahead.
How do you have 6 running backs? How do you kind of foresee how spreading the ball out at that position? And is there an ideal number maybe that you kind of like at that, like in terms of carries?
Well, I think last year's squad would probably tell you 6, 8 enough. It's running back's a tough position, and that's a physical position to have to play every day. So I think the development of that spot, even when you feel really good about maybe your top 3 to 4 guys, you still know like there's an opportunity for the 5th guy. And so I think developing the guys behind those top 3 or 4 is critical. I feel really happy where we're at. I think obviously, Jam is the elder statesman in the room and certainly has the most experience. And I thought it was really good for me to see Jam the last couple of scrimmages when we were live. It was the first time I'd seen him out there breaking tackles and, just kind of showcasing some of the things that he can do. He's an extremely bright player, understands pass protection very well. And then obviously Rich is a guy that's played some ball here as well, and different skill set, a little more of just the straight line physical runner. But I was surprised, honestly, when Coach G talked to me about Rich, how much, kind of pass protection was an issue as far as last year for him, just understanding schematically what was going on. I think Rich put in a lot of time and really improved himself as a pass protector, because it surprised me, honestly, that when he said that, it kind of caught me off guard. I was like, wow, I feel like Rich has done a good job of being dialed. And then Daniel Hill, I thought, was one of the guys that maybe stood out as much as anybody this spring. I thought he really did a nice job. Physical runner, very nimble for how big he is, can stick his foot in the ground and get vertical. Excellent pass catcher out of the backfield, showed a lot of toughness throughout spring. And I thought he really showed up quite a bit and improved as much as anybody out there.
Okay, let's go to Colin Sand on that front left.
Right. You mentioned the offensive line previously, but wondering what development you've seen out of the Arkeil and the Ball State transfer, kind of the progress that he's made with the courses.
Yeah, I thought Arkeil, really did a nice job. Worked a lot. He worked both sides, right and left tackle. I think that was probably new to him. He is young to the game of football in general, so I think as far as a project type player, that would certainly be kind of fit the mold for where he's at. His commitment level is off the charts. He stays after every practice and tries to work drills and just really, I think for him right now as a developmental player, he is just trying to get his skill set where it needs to be so that he can compete consistently.
Jump over to the right side, 3rd row, go to Matt.
What do you think of how Jay Lindsey? Oh, great.
There you are.
What do you think of how Jay Lindsey stepped up, sort of in the absence of other scholarship tight ends?
When you say others, you mean all. He did a good job. It was great. Jay, you always look for those type of opportunities where somebody has to make an impact in a tough stage. And, for Jay to have to step in that role and really take over after the rest of the guys, went down, he got better. I mean, it was kind of necessity is the mother of invention, right? And for Jay, it certainly was it. And I thought he answered the bell well. I thought for him, pass catching and things like that, being able to separate and find opportunity at the second level was something that he needed to work on, and I thought he did a good job of that, and then just being, I think that Jay can be a run blocker kind of guy, like your true anchored Y that gets a couple throws here and there, but is kind of that tough guy mentality, and I thought he showed up.
Let's go to Alex on the right.
Wilkin for me was a guy who maybe battled the learning curve a little bit last year. I'm curious what you saw in terms of progress with him at right tackle.
Well, Wilkin, one of his things was the physical part, just like any young offensive lineman. And, tip of the cap to Dave Lou and his staff. Nobody does it better anywhere in the country than them. And where Wilkin's at now compared to where he was at physically last year, there's a big body of work that's been done. And I thought even just, if you just take run blocking, Wilkin had to work a ton at pad level hand placement, just being able to engage people when he, obviously a longer player. And I thought you could see the physical development with him. He just looked like a different player out there very early on, because my early impression, of Wilkin was just the film that I had seen from last year. And, you know, guys like that, you come into a situation like this and you hope that they've made some big strides, and I certainly think Wilkin had done that, and was really happy with where he ended up this spring. He's got a long ways to go, still got a ton of work to do, he knows that, and he's ready to get to work.
We'll jump right across the aisle and finish up with EG.
Head coach, what did you find yourself spending the most time on in regards to installing your offense this spring while also integrating it with what Coach Sheridan and Coach DeBoer had already built previously?
Quarterbacks, mainly quarterbacks. And I think I mean that in a good sense, in that, you know, the investment with those three guys, you know, what you wanted to see was who are the guys that were going to be able to take in a game plan and function correctly. And so for us, schematically, some of the things that we did, some of the things that were going to be required of the quarterback this year was a lot. And some of the nuances that go with that take a lot of work. And luckily for us, you know, we've got a great situation, honestly. Like Nick and I have always worked well together, and you know, being in the room together and being able to coach those guys, and then having the freedom when we feel good about the messages being sent, that it's everybody's hearing and getting the same feedback is encouraging. And that's the part I felt like, you know, we really pushed that room a lot this spring. And you know, I know everybody wants to know about that position and where things are at. And I would say this, at the end of the day, if we're playing a football game tomorrow, Ty Simpson would start, and he earned that. Okay, and I know that's the line everybody's looking for, but that is what he earned. Austin Mack made huge strides. Also, available reps were the same, you know, and he did a really good job. He came out and developed, just was some of the nuances and take care of the football and things like that. I thought Ty showed out a little bit better, and then honestly, Keelon exceeded my expectations. I think for a young man his age, he never gave in to that opportunity. You know, we challenged him with that. Don't give into, I'm a freshman and this and that, and he didn't. He reminds me, I mean, I say this all the time to him, and I mean it as the biggest compliment. He reminds me so much of Michael Penix, just in his demeanor. You know, he has such a calm demeanor. Sometimes, you know, you need to find the other edge of that and put a little bit of rush on it, but he did a great job, you know, and he had a couple days at the end that, you know, he wished he'd played a little bit better, but man, I thought he made huge strides. Those guys all, you know, Nick did a great job of managing the number of reps for guys, trying to keep the opportunity very equal. And by no means does that mean that we're playing a game tomorrow. You know, and I think there's still a lot of work to be done. I think the message really is that, you know, we got to be even better. And the guys, you know, I know that they'll take that the right way. They understand those things, but essentially, you know, we're not going to be satisfied with the quarterback room until it's how it's supposed to be. And it wasn't perfect this spring, but I thought we were trending the right way the entire time. And so the competitive spirit and the acknowledgement of each other as a competitor in that room was very mature, honestly. You know, and it could have been very different than that. So I'm blessed to work with those guys every day. I'm fired up. We got three really, really good quarterbacks.
Thank you, Coach. Appreciate it.
You bet.